The following podcast is scheduled for one recording with no time limit. Making their way down to somewhere in the ring, Andrew Sanford and Ryan Sprague.
Hey guys, Ryan here from Somewhere in the Ring, and I know we don't cover AEW a lot, but they did have a pay-per-view this past Saturday, and their pay-per-views always deliver. So, of course, I sat down and watched it this morning, and I thought I would give you guys my personal results and review of AEW's Full Gear that took place in Newark, New Jersey this past Saturday. So, here we go. Buckle up. I will give each of these matches a letter grade, and then we will give this pay-per-view a full letter grade as well at the end. But just like many of AEW's pay-per-views, we started with what they call 0-hour matches, which basically aren't on the main card, but good matches nonetheless, usually. So for our first 0-hour match, we had Anna Jay versus Deonna Purrazzo. The match started in a pretty empty arena. A lot of the audience was still sort of piling in, so that didn't really help, but these two women did make the most of this match. Jay seemed to be struggling with a shoulder injury, but was able to escape the grasp of Purrazzo's Fujiwara armbar and rolled her up for a pinfall victory. It was a quality match, but again, they didn't have much to work off of crowd-wise, but they definitely gave it their all. I'm going to give this match a B+. And again, Jay pinned Purrazzo. Purrazzo? Am I saying that right? Someone let me know in the comments. Our next 0-hour match pitted Dante Martin versus Commander versus Buddy Matthews versus the Beast Mortos. This was definitely a match of talented wrestlers, and they all delivered. When Buddy Matthews of the House of Black bested the Beast Mortos, Dante Martin, and Commander in the second match of 0 Hour, Matthews fed off the fans' energy as they were coming in, and he downed Martin to score the victory. And on a night when the House of Black's Malachi Black and Brody King would challenge for the tag team titles, this felt like the first victory in a big night for this faction. Again, Matthews defeated Martin, Mortos, and Commander, and I'm giving this match a B+. Really, really liked it. Our last 0-hour match was Big Boom AJ versus QT Marshall. With Big Justice at ringside, the Rizzler as the special timekeeper, and Paul White on commentary, the Costco guys Big Boom AJ defeated QT Marshall in the match, and this was a lot of fun. Marshall was working incredibly hard to put over his opponent's offense and gave the fans something more than just a celebrity showcase. AJ inevitably went over after a big spear from his son, Big Justice, winning in front of all of his family and friends, and the Costco guys posed to close out the whole ordeal. Big Boom AJ defeated Marshall. This was whatever. Definitely not the best of the 0-hour matches. I'm giving it a C-. Alright, let's move to our main card of AEW Full Gear, and we had the World Tag Team Championship 4-way match. This had Private Party defending the AEW World Tag Team Championship against the Acclaimed, the Outrunners, and the Kings of the Black Throne, and this really got things going. Mark Quinn and Isaiah Cassidy retained the gold in an action-packed opener that continued to highlight Turbo Floyd and Truth Magnum of the Outrunners, and it put over the veracity of Malachi Black and Brody King, and furthered the issues between Anthony Bowens and Max Caster that would lead to the inevitable and overdue end of the Acclaimed. Crowd was not as hot for this one as they were for the previous 0-hour match, surprisingly, but it was still a pretty good match nonetheless. Private Party did retain the titles. I'm giving this one let's go with a C+. Next up, we had Roderick Strong versus MJF. MJF bested Roderick Strong in a match between two of the more technically gifted wrestlers on the AEW roster. This was a really good match, with MJF following up his early match attack on Strong's hand with a very strong offense. but Roderick Strong responded, targeting the back of his opponent and reminding the world why he was once affectionately known as the Messiah of the Backbreaker. MJF earned the win with a salt-of-the-earth armbar, tapping Strong out and adding a steel chair attack for good measure. Oh, MJF. However, Adam Cole and the Undisputed Kingdom made the save, and conveniently enough, after MJF did most of his damage, and then Kyle O'Reilly aggressively confronted his former friend and tag team partner to close things out and continue their story. This, in my opinion, should have been the opening match. Again, MJF won with a submission. I give this a B+. Fantastic match. And MJF remains one of the best heels ever in wrestling, in my opinion. Next up, we had the TBS Championship match. This pitted Chris Statlander versus Mercedes Moné. And I will say this was a damn good match from start to finish. Moné repeatedly and relentlessly attacked Statlander's knee, working it over and keeping the injury fresh in fans' minds as it would play heavily into the finish. Still, despite the injury, she showed great resilience, frustrating Moné repeatedly as she kicked out of everything the champion threw at her. Later in the match, Statlander hoisted Moné for a tombstone, but an alert CEO pounded away at the knee and even bit the leg of her opponent, allowing her to send the challenger into the ropes before scoring a roll-up victory. This was a good match for the AEW Women's Division, and it does prove that the roster is capable of a lot when given time to go out and just have a good damn match. Again, Moné defeated Statlander to retain, and I'm giving this match an A-. Loved it. Next up, we had Switchblade Jay White vs. Hangman Adam Page. Switchblade Jay White improved his record against Hangman to 5 wins, countering an ankle lock from the former world champion into the Blade Runner for a pinfall victory. After the match, an enraged Page attacked White and added a hard right hand to Christopher Daniels as the commentary team questioned what the latest loss would mean for his psyche. So this story is clearly not over. Again, White defeated Page. I'm giving this one an A-. Really liked it. Next up, we had Will Ospreay versus Kyle Fletcher. And this was definitely one of the best matches of the night. Fletcher absorbed everything Ospreay threw at him in an emotionally fueled grudge match to fight out of a Tiger Driver 96 attempt on the ring apron, counter it, and drive his mentor into the steel ring steps with a tombstone pile driver. A lot of pile drivers during this event. From there, the former half of the Aussie Open fought through every last gasp attempt at a comeback and delivered a brainbuster on the ring ropes for the biggest win ever in his career. This was definitely a career-defining victory for Fletcher, and a performance that'll probably launch him into the stratosphere within AEW, and again shows how good Ospreay is at putting people over. This match gets from me an A+. Definitely as close to damn perfect as you can get. Next up, we had the Champagne Celebration. This had something to do with Mina Shirakawa and Mariah May. I have no idea what it was, and I will not comment further. Next up, we have the TNT Championship match. Daniel Garcia versus Jack Perry. You guys know my thoughts on Perry, so you're probably going to know my thoughts on this. This was an okay laid-out match in that Perry dominated early and often, outclassing Garcia for a majority of the first half of the match. But when Garcia finally fired up and mounted his comeback, the crowd woke up and got into the action, supporting him as he goes for the gold. After frustrating Perry with his resilience and ability to kick out of everything, Garcia fired up one last time, caught his opponent's leg, and applied a sharpshooter, and he would end up forcing a submission for the win. I will say the match was a bit disappointing, if only because the layout early on greatly impacted the audience's investment in it. The post-match celebration was cut short as the show threw to the next match, robbing Garcia of a meaningful celebration, but a celebration nonetheless. Garcia defeated Perry to win the title. I'm giving this one a C- just because I hate Perry. Sorry. Next up, we had the AEW International Championship match. This pitted Ricochet versus Takeshita. Takeshita successfully retained the AEW International Championship over Ricochet. It was very competitive, some quality spots along the way, but it felt longer than it needed to be, and it did not play to the strengths of either of these guys. Late in the match, with both men exhausted, Takeshita delivered a power driver knee and added an avalanche falcon arrow for the pinfall victory. Again, Takeshita defeated Ricochet to retain, giving it a C-. It was too long. Match was way too long. Next up, we had Swerve Strickland versus Bobby Lashley. The almighty Bobby Lashley enjoyed a successful first venture into the AEW ring. Lashley dominated early on, but Strickland, as he has numerous times in his run, fought from underneath and took the fight to his opponent. The former world champion drove Lashley through the announce table and delivered a swerve stomp for a 2 count, and then Lashley fended off his opponent, trapped him in the Hurt Lock, and scored a victory via referee stoppage. After the match, the Hurt Syndicate rolled Prince Nana into the ring, where Lashley applied another Hurt Lock to the dismay of the fans. Some solid heel work here. Again, Lashley defeated Strickland. I like where this is going. I'm giving it a B+. And our last match of the night, our main event, was the AEW World Championship match, Orange Cassidy versus Jon Moxley. Cassidy started out hot, rocking Moxley with 3 orange punches, but the champion slowed his momentum and seized control of the match, beating the challenger in a crimson mask and controlling the pace. Freshly Squeezed fought back late, capitalizing on his friends taking out Claudio, Pac, and Marina Shariff at ringside and looking like he might do the unthinkable by defeating Moxley. But there was one last bit of interference from Wheeler Yuta on behalf of the champion, thwarting Orange Cassidy's dreams, and Moxley would retain. This is where things went off the rails. After the match, the Death Riders attempted to poison Cassidy with cleaning solution before Hangman Page made the save. Christian Cage teased cashing in his title opportunity, but Jay White stopped that from happening, and the heels rushed out of the arena only to be nearly struck by Darby Allin, who wrecked his car into their pickup. The heels commandeered another vehicle and escaped while a bloodied Allin vowed that things were not over in a chaotic close to the show. A lot going on at the end of this thing, and kind of took the wind out of the sails of the fans in the arena, but it was pretty dramatic to end things this way with sort of a cliffhanger. I could see wanting to see what happens on their next televised event after this, so job well done. If they can do that, they have succeeded. I'm going to give this main event a B-. It was pretty good. It was good. Just a lot going on, as I guess it should. There was a lot to like about Full Gear, but again, it seems like every time they have 2 good matches, there's a couple duds, and the dud for me was definitely Ricochet versus Takeshita, and the Perry match. Always is. But, as usual, AEW delivers with fantastic wrestling as always, and I am going to give, as a sort of amateur AEW watcher, I'm going to give this overall event a B-. Was not their best pay-per-view, definitely was not their worst, but that's going to do it, guys, for my review of AEW's Full Gear. I hope you enjoyed this. And I hope you will join Andrew and I this week as we break down all the latest pro wrestling news, take a look back at Monday Night Raw and SmackDown, and give our official predictions for WWE Survivor Series and War Games. So much to talk about, and we can't wait to do it with you guys. Be sure to send us your WWE Survivor Series predictions. You can email them to us or send us a voice message to somewhereinthering@gmail.com. And we'll be sure to include those in our episode this upcoming week. Alright, once again, that's going to do it. You can find us all across social media. Just type in Somewhere in the Ring Podcast. Be sure to join our very active Facebook page, Somewhere in the Ring Podcast. and check out our bonus content and material over on Patreon. Again, just search for Somewhere in the Ring podcast over on Patreon. Thanks again for listening, and we will see you soon, somewhere in the ring.
This has been Somewhere in the Ring. Thank you for listening. Subscribe wherever you get your pods, and be sure to rate and review on Apple, Spotify, or wherever possible. We'll see you again soon, somewhere in the ring.